In the previous lesson, in lesson 1.3, we talked about equations and what this equal sign does to equation that we have to balance because both sides of the equal sign must be equal. But there is another type of behavior, another type of equation, let's call it like that, in algebra, which are called inequalities. And to talk about inequalities, we need to replace that equal sign for this other symbol we have here. This symbol is telling us that the left side of this equation is greater than the right side of this equation. So we no longer have both sides equal. We now know that one side is going to be greater than the other side. This is inequalities, one side being greater than the other. So if we're going to be learning about inequalities, we need to understand how to read this inequality symbol. To read it, we need to take a look at the open and the closed side of this symbol. The open side is always going to be pointing towards the greater part of the equation. So that's how we know that the 3x plus 10 is the greater, because 3x plus 10 is on the opened part of the symbol. Then, of course, the closed side of the symbol points towards the lesser side, the smaller side. And that's how we know that 4y minus 7 is the smaller part, because 4y minus 7 is at the closed part of the symbol. So what would it mean if we happen to rotate the symbol pointing towards the other side? Then it means the table changes. Now 4y minus 7 is greater than 3x plus 10. Now the right side of this equation is greater because the right side is at the open part of the symbol. There is another symbol on these inequalities that we need to pay attention, and let's replace it first. You can see it's very similar. It's actually the same symbol. All we did was add a little horizontal line at the bottom. That little horizontal line means 4y minus 7 is still greater than 3x plus 10, but it can also be equal. So now we include the equal. This is like a combination between an equation and an inequality. Yes, we're going to learn how to solve them in unit 4 actually, but this is what the little horizontal line means. It's a combination between inequalities and equation because the right side is going to be greater, but it can also be equal. And of course, we're going to have the same symbol pointing in the opposite direction, because now we're saying that 3x plus 10 is greater, or it can also be equal. So that little horizontal line means it can also be equal. But same as we did with equations, let's put it into perspective by replacing the value of x for a number. Any number we want. Let's replace this x. One more time, yes, this is a very important reminder that in algebra, when a number is next to a letter, that means multiplication. 3x is the same as 3 times x. Let's replace the x for a 5. So 3 times 5 is 15 plus 10. This is equal to 25. Now remember, we still have this symbol. The open side of the symbol is pointing towards the 25. So that 25 needs to be greater than whatever we get on the right side. The right side needs to be lesser. It's the lesser value. It needs to be smaller. So whatever number we replace for y, this right side needs to stay smaller than 25. One more time before we replace. Remember, 4y is the same as 4 times y. So let's replace. Let's replace it for a 7, for example. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 minus 7 is 21. This is true. 21 is smaller than 25. But the difference between equations and inequalities is, in equations, we generally only get one answer. For inequalities, we can get many. Because 7 is not the only number that makes this true, we can replace it for a 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 minus 7, that's 11. It's still true. 11 is still smaller than 25. We can replace it for a 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 minus 7, that's negative 3. Negative 3 is still smaller than 25. So any number we can replace y for that makes the right side smaller is going to be true. So for inequalities, we tend to have a lot more answers than what we have for equations, because as long as the right side is smaller than 25, that answer is going to be true. But of course, we have the second case in which we replace it for the little horizontal line. So we're putting the little horizontal line. The little horizontal line, what makes this is we can also have it equal. It doesn't necessarily has to be smaller. It means all the answers we did for smaller are still true. But now, if we replace the 1 for an 8, 4 times 8 is 32. 32 minus 7 is 25. This answer is also true because of the equal sign. Before it wasn't. Before 8 was not a possible answer because 8, it was not included on the equal sign. Now, because of that little horizontal line, 8 is part of our answer. For more math lessons like this one, visit our website, mathusermanual.com, or follow us on Instagram at mathusermanual.